Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a very quick thank you for listening to our podcast. Bert and I are so grateful for your likes, your listens, your comments, your emails. Keep it coming. We love hearing from you. As a quick reminder, if you visit acceleratinghumans.com/presale, you can be the first to know when our course, Automate to Accelerate, drops, as well as our learning cohort. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome to Accelerating Humans, where we talk about tech, people, and what actually moves the needle when change is hard. Today, we're talking about a little tool with big impact, the change script. It's the thing you wish you had when everyone's confused, resistant, or just plain checked out. We'll unpack a real-world example from an MIT-backed project, walk through why your AI rollout needs more than a tech checklist, and show you how to give your team a story they can actually get behind. There's this thing I've seen over and over. Someone gets excited about a new tool. Maybe it's AI. Maybe it's just a better process. They roll it out, and the team just kind of blinks at them. Like, okay, but what do I do now? This is where the change script comes in. We picked up this idea from MIT. Yes, the MIT. And the concept is super simple. When you're introducing change, people need a narrative, not a mission statement, not a data dump. A clear human story that says, here's what's changing, here's why it matters, and here's what it means for you. It's kind of like giving your team a map before a hike. You can have the best trail, the most advanced gear, but if no one knows what direction to go, they're just gonna stand there. So today we're digging into how to build a good change script, how to adapt it for AI transitions, and what leaders often miss when they jump from strategy to rollout without bringing their people along. This one's for anyone who's ever launched something and then had to circle back to explain it 3 times. Let's save ourselves any trouble and do it better. Let's get into it. Hi, Bert.
Good afternoon, Julianna. How are you?
I'm good. So I wanted to talk about today an article you sent me.
I did. Which one? I send you a lot of articles.
The best is when I wake up in the morning and I see an email for you at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Look, that's when I focus sometimes. Get all the kids to bed. Nobody's emailing me. Nobody's messing with me. Second shift.
One, if you didn't personally know my fiance, and 2, if it was not nerdy AI stuff, he would be very concerned about 2 a.m. emails coming through. But I do appreciate them, and I read most of them. But this one was a really cool one because the headline of it was that MIT is reporting 95% of generative AI pilots at companies are failing. So that was an article in Fortune magazine, and that headline.
That caused a response in the stock market, and it's total clickbait. I thought it was great. But I look at this and I say, okay, I know my own personal experience with AI, and I can look at it and say, okay, can I do stuff that I couldn't do before? Yes. Can I go a lot faster than I could before? Yes. Does it allow me to get information on pretty much anything? Yes. Okay, how are they screwing this up? And that's the problem. It's always the problem. It's people are the problem. We're not. Some folks are in, or some people are not. You know?
So here's me as a staunch change management person. Sure. I've worked in the change management components. I've written about change management. Our workshops are about leading humans through change.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's like it's an old statistic, but 70% of changes fail.
Oh yeah.
So when you sent me this and I read the headline, I wasn't, yes, 95 is extreme.
Hmm.
Than like the 70%. But it's not totally ridiculous to think that the change is gonna the change is gonna fail though. Because when you look at change, the first thing is if you're swapping one for another, if you're swapping one keyless entry system for another keyless entry system, easy.
Yeah.
But when you're actually implementing a change where it's changing how a person thinks, how a person acts, how a person behaves at work, yeah,
Well, this is a fundamental
it's
shift.
yes. And the other thing that it got me thinking about, because I can go on forever and ever about the
Yeah.
changes, I really want to understand the quote unquote generative AI projects that were being done or that were
Right.
being put in. Because I have found that a lot of businesses that we've worked with, Bert, they're like, we want AI, we need AI. And then we sit with them and we're like, you just need automation.
So I've got a big problem with this, and I get people very frustrated with me at times, and I talk to very senior leaders, and they
Mhm.
tell me what they want to do. It's like, yeah, we want to do this, and it's like, um, is that actually going to solve your problem? And then they
Mhm.
have to think about it, and the answer is no. But that's not what they wanted to hear. They
Mhm.
wanted the shiny tool or whatever, and it's really frustrating in the sense that a lot of times, if I went to one of their, say I went to a billing center, or I went to a
Yeah.
payment processing center for a healthcare company, and I sat with their coders, or I sat with some people that were doing receivables for them, and
Mhm.
I want to know, okay, how do you do this? Now go sit down with another person. Okay, how do you do this? Now go sit down with another person. How do you do this? I'm going to get three different answers. And if I go and look at what their actual process is, they might have a bunch of disparate processes that have grown up organically over time and have been documented only in the sense that the people that they're using to train the next generation is, I'm training
Yeah.
them on this is how I do it. Or maybe a supervisor is training their people, but there's no one process. And the crazy thing about this is I can go back and look at their acceptance rates for their claims, and I can show them which of
Mhm.
the processes are working better than the others based on the success ratios for different types of treatment and different types of, like, who submitted it. And it's
Yeah.
not complicated. It's you don't have a technology problem, you have a process problem, which comes
Well,
to the automation. It's like,
yeah,
what am I doing?
I want to dive a little bit deeper into this idea of automation and AI
Sure.
because I think that there are so many gaps or misunderstanding about automation versus AI and where that really comes from. So
Yeah.
a great example is someone says, "Hey, can't we solve this data analytics problem with AI?" And I just want to think, no, it's analytics. We want to build an automation for this because it's a repetitive thing. Why do we want to use AI? And then they're saying AI because it's usually your CFO or your COO or your CEO who's going, I read an article that AI is going to change the world and AI is super powerful and AI can do all this stuff to fix our problems. And you go, well, okay, even if we could get it to do that, should.
Should you is important question to ask. And kind of coming back to that 95% fail, the question
Hmm.
that I would ask is, like, how are you evaluating that? What
Yeah.
were they trying to accomplish with this
Hmm.
generative AI project? Because,
Yeah.
like you said, if I could just implement a filter that allowed me to have this information, do a report, and I'm a guy that I hate reports. I don't want to do another report. But can I, is there another way to solve this problem? Am I
Yeah.
using the right tool? Kind of,
Yeah.
there's a concept of Maslow's hammer, I think it's called.
Hmm.
But when all you have
Yep.
is a hammer, every problem is a nail.
Frozen now. And I think it's like, let me introduce you to my two friends, could and should.
Yeah,
And the difference is that we can use AI and we can implement an AI problem, an AI project to solve this
sure.
problem. But should we do that? And especially, should we do that if there might be a much quote unquote higher failure rate? So, I mean, I think that first we should really look at what is an automation versus what
Hmm.
is AI, or when do we really start classifying something as artificial intelligence, and then walk through like, yeah, we could do this, but when should we be utilizing automations and when should we be utilizing AI?
Yeah, it's because there's a lot of different types of machine learning, and there's a lot of different
Hmm.
types of AI, and it. I mean, you could make the argument that software is some form of computer assistance that allows you to
Hmm.
whatever. It doesn't matter what you're trying to fulfill a function using a tool that is not made by man, or that is not a human. So it's artificial in nature. So I could make arguments, but it usually breaks down to the types of AI that we're talking about. And for what you saw in this article, it's this generative AI. So it's using a
Hmm.
large language model. It's trying to it's trying to use a large corpus of information to create a predictive response from the information that it has in its corpus. For our
Yeah.
purposes, answer a question that someone poses it. And really, my question is, if I'm trying to implement that as a business solution, is it customer facing? Is it staff
Hmm.
facing? And what problems are they trying to solve with it? What information does it have available to us? And in another article, I think I've also sent you, probably at 2 a.m. as
Hmm.
well, it was referencing how just some AI training for general employees significantly increases their satisfaction and outlook at work. And it also removes a lot of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt that they feel about AI.
There's a few things that I want to touch upon that you just
Sure,
said.
sure.
The first is that generative AI. And I think that a lot of times when people again say AI, they either think automations, or it's when they think automations, it might actually be AI. So, a great thing to think about is something like Siri or Alexa that's
Sure.
been around for a while. And, that's AI to say out loud, like, hey, Siri, can you call Bert? And it goes, calling Bert Carroll. Like that's an AI right there. Versus,
Well,
an
I mean,
automation is, go ahead.
well, this is cool because I want you to think about what that thing did when you said, "Hey,
Hmm.
call Bert Carroll." First off, it recognized your voice. It turned
Hmm.
itself on. It recognized that you had something that you wanted it to do. It parsed what the ask was. It said you want to contact a person. Said, "What do I have that access to that allows me to get that?" Goes to your contacts book, looks up my name using it used a voice recognition that parsed that into something that was machine readable, found my name, found that you wanted to call me,
Hmm.
chose the phone number to use from that, connected it to the phone app, and then dialed the
Hmm.
number. Those are
Yeah.
all the automated steps that took place in that system for it to do
Yeah.
that. And for something like Siri, I would bet that the normal actions like that are not just straight up generative AI, but they're
Hmm.
automations that they built into the background because they knew
And
that those
that's
are going to happen over and over.
and that's what I wanted to get at, right? So there's
Yeah,
things that we're like, yeah, it's AI, but a lot of times it comes back down to a lot of automations. And to that regard, blending in this idea of, are your people ready? Are they knowledgeable, or are they trained on this concept? If you are a CEO and you say, we want to go and become a AI first organization, and I want to do everything with AI, and you are looking at this huge, big AI plan, yeah, that change is going to fail. When you say, I want everything to be AI. But if you start rolling out things that people don't realize, like a Siri, are AI, or things that are automations that really probably do what you want your AI to do and could be better, you're
Hmm.
going to get that better change. I mean, Bert, when we go and we do our workshops for managers to help lead their employees through change, one of
Sure.
the biggest things that's spoken about is, what does AI do and what is it actually capable of doing? So we kick it back to our change archetypes, and you have someone who's a warrior because they think that AI is going to take their job. And you say, hey, you are a very um, specialized person in your role, and you have 25 years of institutional knowledge. Like, AI might make your reports run faster, or might key in your information, but this is where your value lies, or this is how we see your role changing.
And that's really important. The fear and uncertainty part. I think that when I talk to folks
Hmm.
about this, getting them to understand what this is, this
Hmm.
big crazy idea out there. It could rah rah rah, and people are speaking in generalities.
Hmm.
It will do this. Well, okay, what is this, and what is it? Generative AI will allow me to perform these specific tasks. Does that
Yep.
replace a human that has been doing it for 20 years? Maybe, maybe not. Now, if I'm talking to that human that could potentially be replaced by a specific AI that is doing a
Hmm.
specific thing, what I would probably talk to them about is, okay, this is a tool and you can use this tool to go faster.
Hmm.
And the question is no longer, am I going to be replaced by it? But what does this allow me to do professionally that I wasn't able to do
Hmm.
before? And I think
Yeah.
so often when we talk to these folks that they just didn't understand what the change was going to be in the first place.
Hmm.
And then they also didn't understand what the tool was or what was possible. And I think that when you get people out of the rut that they've been in professionally and get them to think in terms of, okay, change is happening and I get to have some agency around it, I get to choose how to use the tool and impact the outcome, they become part of the process. And when they become part of the
Yeah.
process, they feel involved and they're much more likely to succeed. They're
Yeah.
happier.
So let's go back to my friends could and should.
Should.
Because I want people to really think about this in their organizations, their businesses, their daily lives. If could they use AI, or could they use automation? And should they use AI, and should they use automation? So I think the first thing first is, if you are in an organization where there is more than 65% resistance
Hmm.
to any type of technology, or I should say, if you're in an organization where 65% of the workforce has not embraced some level of technology,
Hmm.
meaning they're not efficiently using computers, they're not skilled with an Excel, they're not utilizing Teams, Zoom meetings, you are not 65% of this AI readiness or this technology readiness is not there. You could implement AI. I don't think you should. That's one of my hot takes of could and should. What about you,
Yeah.
Bert? What's your thought?
Well, if I think that that's probably a really good hot take, and it just stems from this idea that you should really understand what your problem is before you jump on a solution.
Hmm.
And I think that clearly understanding what the ask is and what you hope to accomplish for it from it is going to allow you to make a more rational decision. And you
Yeah.
should understand what the costs are. I think that one of the problems people have run into is that their costs get out of control with AI. They don't understand what the tokens are going to cost,
Yeah.
um, and that can be ruinous. You can spend a lot of money very
Yeah.
quickly.
I also think in the could and should, one of the great examples is your data, which everyone works off of.
Sure.
So if you're doing data analytics, you should be using an automation. Vice versa, if you wanted to do predictive analytics, so if you want to do predictive analytics, you could use an automation, but you should probably use AI in helping with some sort of predictive analytic as a great example.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to talk to a lot of people that, well, it's all over the place, but there's been some tools that AI is able to do. It's able to run a huge amount of models very quickly.
Mhm.
One of the things I found really powerful that you don't think of very often is if I wanted to uh, run a scenario, I can say, "Hey, give me 100 or 1,000 samples of this,"
Mhm.
and it'll just pop it out like that. So this is allows me to model data based on reality and extrapolate. And
Mhm.
it's people are going to argue that it's okay, it's just going to make that crap up. But if the synthetic data that it comes up with is able to be matched to real world experience, that it tells me that that the algorithm that it's using to determine it
Mhm.
to give me that data is pretty reasonable. So if I can do some fact checking on that and extend it from it, it allows me to perform tests that I wasn't able to before, and
Sure.
that's really neat. Uh,
Yeah.
but so where you're seeing some really interesting changes are like chemical folding or protein folding.
Mhm.
It's able to run a lot more scenarios than a human would ever be able to do, or even a
Mhm.
supercomputer would be able to do. It's just looking at it differently and trying different things, and it's coming up with some really novel ideas that have started to bear some fruit. But from the business perspective, it's a question of, okay, do I want a chatbot? Am I going to use an API from ChatGPT or one of the other major players? What am I trying to accomplish? AI is only really useful as the tools that it has access to. So
Yeah.
if I'm just going to use it to explain to my customers about our process, that's a pretty simple tool. But if I'm able to open up the API to my ordering system and let them know about their specific orders and get information about that customer with their orders, with their problems, it's much more useful.
So what is your could and or should scenario then?
So, so could I use AI and should I use AI?
Mhm.
Uh, it's really contextual to the organization, and I hate to say that, but it very much is. So I want to evaluate the organization. Are they ready to do something? Is there a will within the organization to do something? So
Mhm.
if there's a high will to do something, but there's a low opportunity to do something, you still might do it anyway because it would allow you to gain additional experience working with AI, and it might be valuable to your team. So even though that might not seem like a slam dunk, don't do it. I would still say that if you can get your developers working with AI, if you can get your executives on board with AI, that might be valuable, but
Yeah.
only if it's going to be useful for the rest of the organization.
See, I still think that there's a lot more use cases out there that are very, very defined. Again, even if your company is AI forward, I'm going to go back to the data analytics and I'm going to say that there are specific analytic purposes where you're trying to flag specific data that I would only go automation with. And then you can layer AI on top of it to try to put together reports and information. But the fact that there's some AI tools that will still hallucinate, or the case that I'm sure everyone is aware of where the AI tool ended up giving itself more permissions than it should have and deleted certain records from a database. Um,
I'm going to call BS on that one. But no, it's just it's so there are situations, but that's a controls question. So should
yeah.
it have had the ability to do that? I think it's a configuration issue. They didn't know what they were doing. They set up something ineffectively, and they
Yeah.
had it all running through AI. They told it to do something. They didn't check the pull request, and they deleted their database.
Well, I
Learning from
think
it.
another could and should is, you could develop your own AI tools, but should you develop your own AI tools? So I think that's a really big one as well, and something that the article that we started this episode with talks about. Like, yeah, there was a 95% failure rate, but when you then broke that out and said what was the failure rate of AI tools that were from third party companies, um, it was in the 60% failure rate, which is very close to the older statistic of 70% of change initiatives fail. So it's more like a could you build your own AI? And I'm not talking about your customized bots, but could you start from scratch?
So
Maybe.
I
Should
just
you
went.
though?
Well, so that one is, and going back to the failure rate.
Mhm.
So purchasing AI tools from specialized vendors and building partnerships succeeded about 67% of the time.
Yes.
So while internal builds succeed only a third as often. So if you're focused on what you're trying to accomplish and you can plug it in, it's extremely valuable.
Hmm.
But in general, if you're just trying to throw AI at the problem, proceed with caution.
Yeah. I'm also a big believer of it's the economic principle that when you look at a global economy, every country needs to export what they do best and just focus on that, right? In theory, it doesn't, I remember the US just needs to focus on movies and in graphics because that's what we're the best at. Um, yes, yes, that was the years ago, like that idea. And I think when we go of a could and a should for AI, you also need to look at what are your people best at and what's the technology best at. So if you are a small business owner, could you use AI to help generate information for you? Yeah. Should you? Well, it depends on your goals, your long term goals. If your strategy is to actually gain clients, I would say you're probably better off hiring someone to do your sales and marketing, than trying to do it yourself. And that's really how I view AI a lot with the could and the should,
Yeah.
where automations, one, they're a lot easier to do because they're doing one specific thing. And when you get it right, it is right. And it's not changing, right? That bug isn't changing. It's not going to hallucinate. It's not going to sway in any way. Whereas like AI is something that you have to train it and it could learn. And if you don't have the right people doing the right things for it, it's going to fail. And that's really right, the internal failures being so high because if you don't actually know how to train it,
Well, yeah,
you're in.
I would agree. I would in general agree with that. I think that the anytime that you're trying to just implement a solution and you don't have a good purpose or good reason for it, it's not going to be as focused as you want. If an automation is very focused on a very specific task and is going to have a very specific outcome, we I had a recent project where I moved a bunch of files for someone. I was able to know
Mhm.
exactly which files they wanted. I was able to check them, go get them, make sure that that I didn't have any corruption in them, deliver them. They were extremely happy. They got exactly what they wanted, and it was a very much I had a very specific input in mind and a very specific output in mind.
Mhm.
Did the thing and I used automation in order to do it. A lot
Yeah.
easier than trying to use AI to do it, where I don't have as clean of a focus on what the outcome is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me again it always comes back to, my friends could and should. When you look at and say let's make our organization AI focused, um ask if, it's AI overkill. So ask yourself like we could, but should we do it? So like if you were doing expense reimbursements and you said, "Oh, I really want to use AI for expense reimbursements," like, okay, so AI can scrape the receipt and fill in the category, the amount, the date. Sure, like that's fine. Um, that can also be an automation. Um, but do you need AI? Because AI is really something like, does AI need to learn your spending habits? Like, when it comes to the should AI be used, I go to this idea of it's a very powerful tool. It can do a lot, and let it do the really hard conceptual things. Your AI does not need to learn your junior level employee's spending pattern. Now, you can use AI if you said, I want to look at the spending patterns of the whole organization and see if anyone is abusing uh, their expense reimbursements or their P card or something like that. I think that's fine. But like the actual example of submitting your expense, I don't think you need AI to do that, or like an AI overkill.
Well, okay, an AI overkill. I think that you are going to see a bunch of expense reporting tools go AI, full AI in the near term
Mm-hmm.
if they haven't already. And I think that you're going to run into situations where it's a big brothery sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's going to be a limited appetite for that from people. And, you're going to have some pushback. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of my own personal experience and, approach to AI, let AI do stuff it's good at. Let people do stuff they're good at. There's a lot of times where AI has tried to get me to go dig through a repository and change specific
Mm-hmm.
lines, and I'm like, dude, come on, man. Um, don't make me do with my human meat hand stuff that you're going to be better at.
Yeah.
And it quickly parse information and provide specific targeted changes is something that it's going to be very good at. Me trying to look across thousands of rows of information or parse thousands of pages of information, I'm not going to be as good at. It's also going to be very good at looking at huge amounts of data and surfacing information that's useful. I might use it in conjunction with normal analytics to say which field should I be looking at, and then I run the numbers using that.
So I think a big distinction, Bert, in your examples are, okay, I get a 50-page brief. Yeah, I can
Mm-hmm.
use AI. I'm not going to use analytics because I have to develop an analytic where a tool is already available for me to use for AI. I'm looking at this more as you are running a business, you have 10,000 employees, and you say we're going to undergo AI initiatives. You could do that. Which ones should you actually push forward? And again, my hang up is always going to be for the folks that are making these decisions. Just because you can
Doesn't mean
doesn't
you
mean
should.
it's going to be doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And really looking at things like, if something is repetitive, if something is rule driven, if it's, consistent, if it's like a compliance issue, if it's something that you need to audit, right? Checks, approvals, resets, that should probably be an automation because it's very black and white. It's very, I'm going to say, easy to develop this automation. But once you have the rules explained, once you have the correct rules, once you
Mm-hmm.
have a knowledgeable developer, and once you have a kick-ass BA who understands all the scenarios and cases to test, you are going to be better off from an adoption standpoint and probably a results standpoint than using AI.
Well,
And
there's
then when
also
you're
a
looking at
cognitive debt
the,
aspect. So
well,
you lose the
sure,
knowledge if they don't understand it. Business rules.
right, right. And then like AI, all right, so should we use AI? Well, like, if there's ambiguity in it, if we're trying to look up patterns, if we're trying to find those small nuances, if we're dealing with, messy data or forecasting of stuff, really predicting things, then like, yeah, absolutely go ahead and use AI. And I think my message overall is, again, for those who are looking at and saying, can I use AI? Change the sentence to, can I use technology to solve this business problem? And are we a technology first organization? And then break it down to, where do we need better reporting? Where do we need better automations? And then, where can we use specific types of AI? Because again, that person may not realize that having a missed call going to a certain answering message to then be recorded, to then send you an email of the voicemail breaking down is AI / automation. And it's not this like crazy AI, but it's still AI. So,
Right.
looking at things going, let's be a tech first organization and not push, it needs to be AI, it needs to be AI, it needs to be AI.
Yeah, I mean, and if they must call it AI, then we just push the ring out a little bit further and say, okay, well, you're including machine learning
Yeah.
as AI, if you want. But I mean, it's not generative AI in that sense. You can have components of it, but I do the generative AI versus machine learning versus just technology in general. It's an incredibly broad field, and the question is, which problems are you trying to solve, and which tool do you want to bring to that particular problem solving session? It doesn't always need to be one of these, one of the generative AIs. So it doesn't need to be ChatGPT. It doesn't need to be a API driven version. It doesn't need to be something you've built in house. You need to come in with a clear understanding of what you're trying to accomplish and what you hope to get out of it. If you don't have those two things, then you're probably not going to have a way of measuring what you did.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened? Well, we spent a
Yeah.
lot of money and didn't get anything.
Well, I think in the show notes,
Sure.
we will have linked a decision tree, a should and could decision tree, where as a listener, it will help you make the decision of, should you actually use artificial intelligence or push for an AI change in your organization? So, and it'll link back to a few of our other tools, like our archetypes, as an example, because that's one of those factors of, should you go ahead with this AI change? But on our website, acceleratinghumans.com, and in your show notes, you'll be able to find that for free download. No email required for this one. Just click the link and download.
Yeah. I think that covers it.
I need to go punch a punching bag and pretend it's a bunch of these people who are like, we need AI. I mean, I love AI. Don't worry. I mean, we're going to use it. We use AI to make our decision trees. So it's not like
there's a lot of AI
really
involved, but there's also a lot of misinformation in the sense that, people just, it's a word, and it's the hot button right now, and it's what everybody's jumping on.
Yeah. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
To talk human.
Remember
right,
that
Bert.
people make up companies. It's not all y'all.
Yeah. All right, Bert. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Juliana.
Till next time.